Hello and welcome to 2024 Indianapolis Colts team preview. Anthony Richardson, please, injury gods, just give us 17 games of Anthony Richardson because the man might break fantasy football if we get that. Jonathan Taylor's back injury magically healed after he got his contract extension, but will the fantasy results return in 2024? Michael Pittman, Josh Downs, Jelani Woods, and this economy, all that and so much more here over the next 30 minutes. Strap in. We're talking all things with the Indianapolis Colts. I'm your host, Ian Hartitz. Welcome to the Fantasy Life Show. And joining me, as always, Fantasy Life Director of Analytics and all-around rock star, Dwain "The Rock" McFarland. And Dwain, it's Anthony Richardson, man. Number one quarterback in fantasy points for dropback last season. Didn't see him for very long, just 2 complete starts, but the man we saw was an absolute fantasy superstar. Do you think we get that on a more consistent basis in 2024 if, again, as I said at the beginning, the injury gods can chill out for once?
Yeah, I mean, if the injury gods do chill out, this guy has a chance to be the QB1 overall. And I think that fantasy drafters have shown that they're willing to take the plunge, Ian. I mean, this guy's coming off the board as the 5th quarterback right now in underdog drafts where we know there's tons of money, real money. People are putting their chips in the middle, and they're going after Anthony Richardson. And even if we look over at ESPN, we look at Yahoo, some of these other sites, people are up on Richardson. So I think a lot of the people building out the projections and the things that sometimes drive those early ADPs, they're pretty sharp on what Richardson can mean. Hard to predict. Will the guy stay healthy? He's battled a lot of shoulder injuries, different things through the course of his career. So I know some of the Twitter doc family that's out there has more concerns than others. I don't pretend that I can predict injuries. And so when I look at a guy like Richardson and I have to weigh the fact that he might get injured again, it's a concern, but the upside is just so huge that it's hard to not want to take him. And I think where he's going in drafts, to me, I'd like to hear your thoughts, makes a lot of sense because essentially he's the last dual threat alien until we get to Jaden Daniels, who's still a rookie. And so I get it. You should take him over Joe Burrow. If he hits his upside, it's going to be better. You should take him over Dak Prescott. You should take him over these other guys like Brock Purdy that are pocket passers. So I think he's priced correctly. You just need him to stay healthy. But, man, when it goes well, Ian, it really goes well. I think he's going to probably get 30% of the carries inside the 5-yard line. This guy had a design rush share of 18% in the games that he played. That was second behind only Jalen Hurts. Scramble rate was only 5% last year, but I think you see something more like between 8 and 10%, what we're used to seeing from a Lamar Jackson level kind of guy once all the dust settles and we get a larger sample. So he's going to do his damage on the ground. Can he take a next step forward as a passer? It's a coin flip or worse. Yeah. Like, he was not a great passer in college. He did certainly make certain throws that he showed he could make. He made some wonderful throws. But last year we kind of saw the same thing as we saw in college, very inconsistent. Now, again, small sample, but a 56.5 PFF pass grade. That by far is the worst out of any quarterback before we get to the name Bryce Young, who is ranked right now as my 24th quarterback. But again, you said it many times. You don't even have to be a good passer. If you're a really good rusher, that is the cheat code at quarterback. We've seen Taysom Hill. We've seen Tim Tebow. We've seen all these different guys come along there, and you can argue how terrible they are as passers. If you have that elite rushing upside, you're going to have a strong chance to be in the top 6. And the cool thing is, he's a young player. Let's say he takes a step forward as a passer, which is totally possible. That's how he unlocks a potential QB1 overall finish.
27 quarterbacks have had at least 100 carries in a season over the last 10 years. 89% of them finished inside fantasy's top 12 signal callers on a per game basis. I'm not cheating and using the totals. 59% top 6, 41% top 3. That's the upside we were working with. So Dr. Jesse Morris and Dr. Deepak Chona agreed that Richardson will be 100% with no concerns for week 1, recovering from that shoulder injury. Look, I'm not going to, we watched him play, Dwayne. Week 1 at the end of the game when he was just trying to truck linebackers and get into the end zone, eventually got put in the concussion protocol afterwards. He needs to take better care of himself. But the idea that these rushing quarterbacks, are just intuitively more injury prone than statues in the pocket isn't true. We've had Dr. Evan Porras put out great information on the very topic, concluding that is not true. And for my money's worth, the 255-pound guy that is athletic enough to get away from these terrifying edge rushers who are arguably the best athletes in the NFL, give me that guy over the statue in the pocket that, again, has to get rid of the ball or get freaking killed by these, mutants that are pass rushing him. So, yes, for me, Anthony Richardson, my quarterback 5. And Dwayne, it hurt last year drafting so much of him at his QB 10, QB 11 price range because, again, things did look so good before he got hurt. But I'm back, man. He's our most drafted quarterback of the offseason so far.
Yeah, and the other part is like where he goes right now in some of these drafts. You get to a range where you're looking at, some of the receivers and running backs, you're reaching tier breaks.
Yeah.
And so when I get to a spot like that, for me personally, it's a great spot to look at pivoting to one of the onesie positions if you can get elite upside. And I think Anthony Richardson certainly offers that. So I think it makes a lot of sense, Ian, that you've got so many teams built around Anthony Richardson, because I think he's absolutely in that sweet spot in a lot of these different ADPs across the different sites that we look at.
He is going to cost a pretty penny. Going to be tough to find him going after pick 60, pretty much anywhere you want to play fantasy football. And I would caution, again, if we're talking like a 6-point passing touchdown league, all of a sudden someone like CJ Stroud, Joe Burrow, you could warrant putting them ahead of Richardson, but typical 4-point passing.
You know what's sweet about that, Ian?
Yeah.
We have this tool right now. Like we have a rankings hub that actually adjusts for all that. All you do is go in and put in your scoring format, and it will adjust the ranks based on the rankings that we already had in, as well as our projections. So
that is cool. That is cool, Dwain. Good shout. Good shout. All right. We mentioned Richardson, the concern with passing. So accordingly, we do have some concern with his number one wide receiver, Michael Pittman. Yes, he is the clear-cut number one wide receiver. Got that 3-year, $70 million extension during the offseason. And yeah, he was really good last year. Wide receiver 14 in PPR points per game, 2.04 yards per route run. That was tied for 22nd at the position with one DK Metcalf. That said, Dwain, in the 4 starts that we have Richardson at quarterback, again, only 2 of them were fully complete. Still, though, Pittman, half PPR finishes of wide receiver 7. We'll take that. Then wide receiver 46, wide receiver 95, and wide receiver 37. So historically, Dwain, we have some pretty damning stats, again, about wide receiver ones attached to both mobile quarterbacks and rookie quarterbacks, which, again, if you want to kind of make the argument that Richardson should be treated more as a rookie signal caller than a second-year player at the position, I do think it stands up a bit. How are you feeling about Michael Pittman, someone that is, not costing you a top 15 pick at the position, thank God, but still does have, a lower end wide receiver 2 ADP in more places than not?
Yeah, I mean, we have 2 wide receiver 3 finishes and 1 wide receiver 2 finish if we're using thresholds for historical points per game in a PPR setting. So I look at him as a borderline, a low end wide receiver 2, to be honest. I know he's outperformed that last year with Gardner Minshew under center. I'm with you. I have concerns. You're going to get more called and design run plays with Anthony Richardson under center. You're also going to get more plays that are going to turn into scrambles that should have been passes. Not should have been. Like Anthony Richardson's probably going to make the right decision on many of those plays and turn those into 50-yard scrambles, and you want to be in on that. But there's just a lot of challenges for here for Pittman. He's a high-end target earner. He had a 31% target share last year. So I don't want to come out and say that this is a bad player, but he's also a low ADOT player. He doesn't create a lot of explosive plays after the catch. And so he's very limited. And typically for that style of profile, you want them to be playing with a high-end pocket passer with low competition. Now, that is the positive right now. The competition is low. Now, Josh Downs was a lot better before he hurt his knee last season, and he was a little bit more of a threat. And then you add Adonai Mitchell. So there's also some thinness to that, though. If either one of those guys take a big step forward this year, and suddenly now we've got, a true wide receiver 2 challenging for targets, that's going to hurt Michael Pittman. So when I look at him, do I think he's a good player? Yes. I think that once you add it all up with his quarterback, the scheme, the potential for one of these other guys to step forward, he's a guy I'm pretty leery of, and I'm below ADP on Michael Pittman.
I tend to be with you, man. And honestly, again, spending a lot of my time drafting underdog fantasy where he is wide receiver 24. And so that's why I said he is being priced as a low end wide receiver 2, but that's not consistent across the industry. ESPN, man, he's the wide receiver 12 right now, right?
Way too high.
Chris Olave.
Way too high.
Way too high. Wide receiver 21 on Yahoo. I can, wrap my mind around a little bit more, but round 3, round 4, Dwain. Yeah, I'm not paying up for, again, a very run-first offense's number 1 wide receiver. I mean, I looked at your projections just for the overall, kind of team that we're looking at here, and it's not great, man, at least passing the football. I mean, this is expected to be one of the league's more run-heavy offenses, and he really did benefit from having, more of a pass-first, low ADOT approach with Gardner Minshew under center. I mean, if you look at last year, wide receiver 14, PPR points per game, that's great. Wide receiver 20 26th though in standard. So it really is like that SpongeBob meme where, looking all puny and, just someone you could like kick the shit out of, okay, that's Michael Pittman in standard. Michael Pittman in PPR is, jacked up SpongeBob ready to fight Patrick.
And he gets a lot of padding through the RPO stuff. So if the team were to decide that, and that's not necessarily negative. Typically, teams want to get the ball to their best player. The challenge is if suddenly they decide they want to give some of those RPO looks to a Josh Downs. They want to give some of those RPO looks. Adonai Mitchell, that wasn't really his game in college. He was more of a vertical guy, wasn't the greatest getting him the ball around the line of scrimmage. But players change, players can develop. So there's just some risk baked in here, given the overall environment, that Pittman's in. Again, I want to make sure Pittman's a good player. There would be other spots that if he was on the team, I could see us thinking of him as more like a borderline wide receiver one.
Just maybe not this one. So target shares last year with Richardson versus Minshew under center. I know the belief has been that Richardson would kind of be enabling more of these, outside wide receiver stuff. But yeah, with Richardson under center, Pittman, 24% target share. With Minshew, 29.8%. Josh Downs was identical regardless of the quarterback. And then Alec Pierce had also a minus 5% difference with Richardson compared to Minshew. So we'll see what 2024 has in store. But yeah, guys, borderline wide receiver one, we are out. Borderline wide receiver 2, that's the price where it is a bit more right for one Michael Pittman. Of course, Dwain, the most expensive piece of this offense is the RB1. Jonathan Taylor got that 3-year, $42 million extension, which not only made him a rich man, but also magically cured his back injury. That said, when he did get back out there on the field, even after he regained, the full-time featured role from Zach Moss, didn't exactly see the same JT. Career low marks in yards per carry at 4.4 and missed tackles forced per carry. So started to get going, during the stretch run of the year. Sadly, I believe missed a little bit of time with that hand injury, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, half PPR finishes in his final 8 games, RB 7, 21, 10, 14, 6, 23, 12, and 2. So that's very good. You project him for an NFL high 262 carries. But Dwain, at a second round price tag, are you buying into JT due to some of the problems that we have seen running backs have with high volume dual threat quarterbacks?
I mean, I think it's fine if you're playing, depending on your league type. But I'm not targeting him. I don't want to sit here and say that JT, a guy that's he'll be closer to 26 than 25 when the season starts, but I think he's in his prime, and there is a chance that he was playing through injuries last year that held him down. Also, you already, mentioned it's an offensive line that we still like for the Colts. So I think there's a lot of scenarios where Jonathan Taylor plays out nicely for you this year. My challenge is once I get into that range of drafts, there are just some other wide receivers and different things that I'm looking at. Now, again, a lot of what I've done so far is drafting in leagues where you've got to start 3 wide receivers plus a flex. So that just creates this scenario where we've got a supply and demand issue at wide receiver. If you're playing in a league where you're going to start 2 wide receivers and then you need to start 2 running backs and 1 flex, that can change the dynamics a little bit. That's going to push running backs up the board some. So I do think that JT is in a range as far as where he is with his career and the chance that some of the efficiency woes last year were due to some injuries, that he's a fine pick. He's a fine pick where he's going. I just haven't been overly excited about clicking on his name. I do worry about Anthony Richardson being more along the archetype of a Josh Allen and a Jalen Hurts, which is the type of quarterback that's just a freaking monster that's going to still rushing touchdowns. It's just going to be easier for Anthony Richardson to line up under center and go get, 1 yard than it is that turn around and hand it off to JT. That's just the reality of the situation, especially now that the Eagles have shown that there is this cheat code. If you have the right combination of players on your interior of your offensive line and your quarterback, I think there's a chance we get that out of Anthony Richardson this season. So I worry about a potential cap on the touchdown ceiling, Ian. And then obviously you've talked about it before, scrambling quarterbacks, not necessarily going to throw the ball that much to their running back. So I think those are the concerns around JT. What is the true rushing touchdown ceiling, especially if the efficiency doesn't return? And then how much involvement is he going to get in the passing game if Anthony Richardson stays upright?
Minshew did indeed have a 16.1% target share to running backs. Richardson was down to 13.9% during Richardson's time under center. He had 3 carries inside the 5-yard line. All other Colts running backs combined also had 3. So yeah, man, Shane Steichen, before he became the Colts head coach, he was in fact the Eagles offensive coordinator, helped, get Jalen Hurts pushed into the end zone on more than a few occasions. So I mentioned before, again, just the total pass attempts, kind of looking in the passing offense here, 26 in the PFF PFF projections. So we'll see again how many touches that Jonathan Taylor is going to get. But where I come with it, Dwain, Garrett Wilson, Puka Nacua, A.J. Brown, even Marvin Harrison Jr. and Drake London. I'm taking those guys. I'm drafting them ahead of Jonathan Taylor more times than not. But for me, there is a bit of a teardrop after that. I think it's an extended kind of wide receiver 2 tier. Yeah, you can prefer certain guys, but the Chris Olaves, Nikos, Ayuk, Waddle, Devontae Adams, that's where I do take a look in the mirror and I just go, why am I taking one of these wide receivers that does have a pretty clear red flag over a running back who is pretty freaking good and is going to be waltzing his way into 300 plus touches? So,
again, depends on your format. If you have to start 3 wide receivers in a league, I'm going Olave. If you've got to start 2, I'm going Jonathan Taylor. And I do think that's the right line. I think in a 2 wide receiver league, you can even argue that JT should belong above Marvin Harrison as much as we love him. And we're not speaking ill of him. We love him.
Right.
He's still got to prove it. And JT is locked into the lead role for the Colts. So I think it really comes down to your starting formats. And again, our rankings are designed to help you guys with that. You just put in the setup for your league, and we've got logic that's going to help adjust that for you. And it's all based on supply and demand.
Saquon versus JT. We're both taking JT.
Yep.
Love it. All right, guys. As Dwain said, got a lot of cool tools, help you win your leagues based on your league type, because Lord knows there are plenty of out there, and truly grinding to make sure that you guys have every chance to win those fantasy championships. And with our new premium tool, FantasyLife Plus, we were hoping to make that a hell of a lot easier. So here's a message from the one, the only Matthew Berry. We'll be right back after this quick word.
When I started Fantasy Life, I had one mission in mind, really just one: fantasy football and sports betting for all. And what started out as just a newsletter has now grown into a full-fledged media company. And here I am to tell you we're ready to evolve yet again. I'm introducing FantasyLife Plus. It's a premium product built upon a suite of fantasy and sports betting tools to take your game to the next level. I know, I hear you, really, Barry, a premium product? Okay, I understand, but get this. Our mission has not changed, right? Our newsletter will forever remain free. All of our expert analysis, free. And we will still provide sets of fantasy football rankings for free. Everything you need to be a great fantasy football manager, you will still be able to do for free at FantasyLife.com. But hey, if you really want to level up, then FantasyLife Plus is for you. FantasyLife Plus will introduce new tools like our Draft Champion, customizable rankings, site-wide league sync integration, player prop models, game models, DFS pick'em builders, and so much more. Seriously, just check it out. Go to FantasyLife.com to learn more. And as always, may your trades never be vetoed, may your flex plays always work out, and may your Monday Night Miracles always come through.
Great stuff, Matthew. Now, Dwain mentioned before, Shane Steichen, the head ball coach, also OC, one of the best names in the business, Jim Bob Cooter, both back for their second season. So what did we see kind of from a utilization standpoint in year one of the Steichen and, Cooter partnership? Just shout out Cooter Doodle. I had to that. But yeah, man, look, again, this was still a top 10 ranked scoring offense last year, even with Richardson out of the picture. You mentioned the big badass offensive line. They did finish as PFF's ranking 3rd ranked unit, return all 5 starters. The pace stuff was looking great. I mean, again, the ceiling for this offense as a whole, if Richardson can be the guy that a lot of people, hope he can be, seems awfully high.
Yeah, I mean, and we have such a small sample. In the first week, the Colts came out and they played a super fast tempo, which they talked about that they were going to do. And they were 4% drop back rate over expected. Okay. Then they come out and Anthony Richardson played pretty much that whole game. Week 3, the other game where we got full Richardson, -3% drop back rate over expectation, but they still ran that really fast offense. So probably going to be a situation where I think it's like if we're talking about the Madden playbook, balanced with maybe a slight lean to run balance. With a fully healthy JT and a fully healthy Anthony Richardson, it would make sense to me that they're going to want to prioritize running the ball a little bit more than what we've seen in the past. As far as just looking at this scheme overall and Jim Bob Cooter, it is a fun name to say. I have to say, I'm going to have to figure out how to say it at least like 4 more times during the rest, of the show. Whenever you look at what they did, with shift motion, you look at their, play action, pretty good. Like they did a nice job of utilizing the play action. Shift motion, a little bit below the league average and what you would expect there. So, but nothing like crazy out of the ordinary. Did a nice job of using the RPO stuff whenever they had Anthony Richardson under center. So I think they've shown enough balance that I don't want to call it a big plus or a big minus. They're kind of like right down the middle as far as looking at dialing up the cheat codes as a coaching staff.
Accordingly, pretty high expectations for this squad. 8.5 win total, -105 lean on the over. So pretty even odds right now, +325 to win a suddenly pretty competitive AFC South that is third behind the favorite Texans and also the Jaguars. So, I've already said over for the first two teams. Hint, hint, maybe not going to have all four of these teams with an over, but I am for your Indianapolis Colts. It's an organization that, again, does seem to be moving in the right direction. If their backup running backs could catch a pass, hell, maybe they would have even made the playoffs last season. And again, just so much real life upside if Richardson can even get 90% of what this ceiling is. So yes, 28th ranked scoring defense didn't do them many favors last year, but they did take the first defender off the board in the draft and threw bags of cash at guys like DeForest Buckner, Grover Stewart, and Zaire Franklin throughout the offseason. So give me over 8.5 wins, Dwayne. Yeah, I'm pretty high on this team.
Yeah, I'm going to take the over. I took the under on the Jaguars, so I'm going to go with the over on the Colts. They are the other team in this division, in my opinion, that I think, it's Anthony Richardson. The Anthony Richardson factor, it can change a lot. We know quarterback is the most important position, but especially for a team like this, where we don't really have a lot of proven playmakers outside of him and Jonathan Taylor. So if your quarterback can really be a major factor on the ground and make defenses have to plan for that all week long, maybe that uncorks some long plays to a new guy like Adonai Mitchell. Yeah, I am in on this team, and I still want to be in on Shane Steichen, as being a coach that I want to be on board with as well.
Stroud, Lawrence, Richardson, Levis. I'm not sure if that's like that dragon meme where three of them are fierce and one of them looks like, shouldn't exactly
it's going to be.
There.
It's a matter of who's going to be. Money's on Levis to be like the wacky one right now, but we'll see.
Wacky, that's the word I was looking for. All right, guys, I want to give a quick shout out to our friends over at DraftKings before we keep on going with your Indianapolis Colts, because great offer for you. Right now, all new customers who bet just $5 will get $150 in bonus bets instantly. You are free to use that money however you see fit, whether that's looking at the upcoming UFC fight night, maybe backing Rose Namajunas in her main event matchup against Tracy Cortez, or perhaps you're like me and just like to put some fun MLB parlays down throughout the week. Yeah, I would be back in the first place freaking Cleveland Guardians. Why would you not? That's right. Again, new customers who bet just $5 on anything will get $150 in bonus bets instantly. The sports betting is not yet available in your state. Don't worry. DraftKings is a one-stop shop for all things daily fantasy, where you can join in on all the fun and have a shot to win cash prizes. So please, people, download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. New customers use our promo code FantasyLife and bet just $5 on any wager to get $150 in bonus bets back instantly. That's promo code FantasyLife only at DraftKings Sportsbook. All right, Dwayne, a couple more, more auxiliary kind of ancillary pieces of this offense to talk about. You mentioned before with this wide receiver room. Yes, Michael Pittman is the one, but we got two pretty solid compliments in Josh Downs and not Alec Pierce, one of the least efficient receivers in the NFL, but A.D. Mitchell, someone who is breaking a lot of, draft analysts' brains during the process, because on the one hand, my goodness, man, fifth best relative athletic score, out of over 3,000 ranked wide receivers since 1987. The man is big, fast, can jump, everything you want from a wide receiver, had touchdowns in all of his career, college football playoff games, did big things at Georgia and Texas. But some of just the overall, dominating your offense's overall target share and passing game metrics don't exactly stand up to what we would usually see from, day one and even sometimes top 50 level sort of talent. So on the other hand, we have Josh Downs, who I thought did some good things as a rookie, but honestly, I was almost more impressed, and I'm now higher on Josh Downs after watching a lot more of the Drake May tape and seeing what those two were able to do together on that Tar Heels offense back in 2022. So I guess my biggest concern would be Josh Downs last year, only 72% route rate. Alec Pierce had a 95% route rate because of some of their, two tight end usages, but with, just their overall pace and everything, the Colts still did run the fourth most 11 personnel anyway last season despite that. So how do you see this shaking out? Because again, ideally we'd have Pittman, Mitchell, and Downs on the field all the time, but there is a chance Pierce makes things at least a little bit difficult for Mitchell. And again, Downs didn't exactly have the true full-time role we want from our wide receivers as a rookie.
I think it's a near coin flip between Adonai Mitchell and Josh Downs. I think Mitchell is the favorite to start on the outside, take that rollover from Alec Pierce. And if he has a chance to be on the field 85, 90% of the time, if he is even slightly good, like that's going to lead to some fantasy points. We've already talked about the potential limitations overall of this passing game. But if you think about the style that they're trying to set up, draw defenses down, you got to worry about Anthony Richardson. Plus, you got to worry about Jonathan Taylor. You're peppering Michael Pittman with the underneath intermediate stuff. If you have a guy that can win over the top, that could absolutely be huge for this offense. We know Anthony Richardson has the arm to get it done. So I think a slight edge there to Adonai Mitchell. But I think when you look at Josh Downs, you've really got to take into account the injury that occurred in week 9 that limited a 19% route participation. The next week, he
Nice.
tried to gut it out and come back and play only 43%. And if you look at him in those 8 games before, 82% route participation, a 21% target share, and 12.5 fantasy points per game. So that would have made him a low-end wide receiver 3, even in an offense that, is going to run plenty of 2 and 3, 27 tight ends on the field at one time. It's like they got an endless list of tight ends every year, and they all get on the field. So despite all those things, he forced his way out there, and they used more slot, routes than I would have even expected them to. But after the injury, that plummeted down to 70% route participation. Target share dropped to 16%. Fantasy points obviously followed along at 6.9 per game. So I think that there was some injury stuff lingering through the rest of the season for Josh Downs. Really flashed some nice things early in the year. So I think I like both of these guys. Yeah. Do I really want to be betting on both of them? No, not unless I'm playing best ball and I took Anthony Richardson. And even then, like the data has shown us, you probably just want to pair up with one of those guys if you're trying to make a big bet. So I like both. I can't tell you for sure which it's going to be. I slightly lean to Adonai Mitchell because I expect them to win that role on the outside. But there is a chance that Josh Downs is the better player of the two guys.
Certainly don't need to go out of your way to land either guy pretty much across the industry. I mean, ESPN ADP, both wide receivers going outside the top 160 picks. I mean, Adonai pick 164, and we have Josh Downs at 169. Downs is going behind guys like Ricky Pearsall, Marvin Mims. Odell Beckham Jr. has a higher ADP than Josh Downs. Miss me with that. Certainly, again, two of the wide receivers where, no, we recognize all the kind of run-first limitations that apply to Pittman. Obviously, that's also going to impact the complementary wide receivers involved. But just in terms of, again, looking at wide receivers who are pretty much consensusly ranked and then priced outside the top 60 at the position, I'm fine putting some chips down, more so on these talented youngsters than some of the other veterans in that range. Another hopeful youngster, Dwain, didn't get to see him last year, but Jelani Woods, previously the number 1 freaking tight end ever in RAS score, which the monsters that they have on this Colts offense is crazy. Between Richardson, Taylor, some of the offensive linemen, Jelani Woods, Adonai Mitchell now, just want like all-time like number 1 team, like walking off the bus and just scaring the shit out of whoever they're about to play. So shout out to them for making that happen. But yeah, man, sadly didn't get to play all last season due to hamstring issues. But Jelani Woods, 73rd overall pick of the 2022 NFL draft, seemingly healthy now. Colts tight ends, Dwain, when Richardson were on the field, had a 31.6% target share, just 19% from Gardner Minshew. That said, a lot of that was Colin Granson or Will Mallory or Mo Alley Cox. Do you believe enough in Jelani Woods to think that the Colts can get away from their tight end committee? Or is this sadly going to be another situation where, hey, if we had a team tight end position in fantasy football, maybe they'd be fine. But, sadly, we don't. Thanks, bud.
Yeah, I know people won't like this, but you just can't say. Like, we don't know. Again, this would be a big training camp storyline. The guy that we would want to target out of this group, in my opinion, is clearly Jelani Woods. If someone were to break out and have a full-time role, we would hope that it would be him because we would expect fantasy points to have a chance to follow. I'm not sure we can say that around the rest of these guys. He's also got the skill set and the size to where he could be the every down player. Mo Alley Cox, more of a blocker. Colin Granson, more of a guy you just want to have on the field as a receiving threat. Jelani Woods is really the blend of those two things. He's got the size to be that guy that can be fine lining up in line, helping block in the run game, but also being a threat and a mismatch against linebackers and safeties working over the middle of the field. So Jelani's definitely the bet I'm making if I'm playing in a league, that's got 19, 20 rounds. He's a fine last round pick, second to last round pick. If you're looking for something to do with it, there are worse things you could do than throw a dart at Jelani Woods. In a very small rookie sample, he was pretty good. Some of the underlying things that we like to look for were there. Again, small sample, so hard to extrapolate that and just expect it to continue. But yes, Jelani is the name to remember, especially for most of you. It will be week 1 on the waiver wire. Suddenly you hear us talking and say, Jelani Woods had an 85% route participation and scored 17 fantasy points. We're going to want to get on board pretty quickly.
One of the closer situations we'll be watching in terms of, first team preseason snaps as well. So I'm with you. We've talked a lot about our favorite late round tight ends, Noah Fant, Jonnu Smith. I'd even put Taysom Hill in there if he is, getting that designation, depending on your league. For me, those guys are clearly a tier above Jelani, but I think Jelani next to guys like, Mike Gesicki and maybe even like Cade Otton, that's more so the tier that he believes in. So it is a true dart throw. It could be a situation where we see week one and we say, yeah, see you next year, maybe never Jelani, if he's just not going to be able to get the overall opportunity. But yeah, big man who is really freaking athletic. Maybe things will work out. As we conclude every team preview podcast, Dwain, we are going on and comparing the Colts to a TV or movie character. Last time, because we do not share our notes before, we actually had the exact same one. I do not think we will get there this time, but maybe I am going to go with Steamin' Willie Beeman from Any Given Sunday, essentially being Anthony Richardson. No rap career or music video just yet, but it's a team, with some veterans that, doesn't have all that much life, but suddenly with their new hotshot dual threat quarterback, they go from a laughing stock to a legit contender. So I don't know if Shane Steichen's going to be as good, with a microphone in front of the room as Al Pacino, but hey, a lot of things moving in the right direction. They're moving in the right direction largely because of their young, exciting quarterbacks. So what say you, Mr. McFarland?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Star Wars A New Hope, because essentially, you're at a period where the Jedi used to be really strong way back in the day. And then the Empire, beat them down. And you used to have Andrew Luck, you used to have a Jedi. And then you've lived through all this period of trying to find someone. Is it going to be Phillip Rivers, Matt Ryan? Can we find like an old Obi-Wan Kenobi? Can they? No, none of them worked out. They just couldn't find a Yoda that was still a badass at their age. These guys all missed the mark. And now you have Anthony Richardson. I mean, I think the other thing is, if we were to put it on a scale of any one team depending more on one player on offense, is there one? I know they have the offensive line, which enables everything, but Richardson and his blend of talents, if I'm a defensive coordinator, I know Michael Pittman's good, but I'm not rebuilding my whole scheme for Michael Pittman. Right. It's an underneath possession receiver. Tackle him, guys, wrap up, going to get his targets, but probably isn't going to beat us, even if he has a good game. Right. I mean, if I look at Jonathan Taylor, you could argue yes, but the league is basically inviting teams to run the football with running backs. So defenses they want that. So Anthony Richardson, in my opinion, they need a Jedi, and he's the guy. He's the guy that has to step forward, and he has to be Luke Skywalker. He's the new hope for the franchise. And I think he's got a good shot, Ian. I took the over on this team, and I think he is a guy that can create absolute nightmares if you're a defensive coordinator. He can cause you to lose some sleep.
And moral of the story, even if some of the real life, expectations we have here fall short, going to truly, if Richardson plays 17 games and finishes outside the top 12 quarterbacks, I'll
be floored.
I will bike to Indianapolis at some point. I will not walk there. That's pretty far. But man, that's a lot. I'll do it. Screw it, Dwain. Screw it.
You're going to ride a bike to Indianapolis if he's not in the top 12 quarterbacks, if he plays all 17 games.
Fact. Yes.
Okay.
Sign me up.
Swing, Mark.
Hey, we have unlimited vacation at Fantasy Life, so I don't see why it's much of a problem. But we will hopefully not have to address that again. But I'm a man of my word. We will see what happens. So hope you guys enjoyed this edition of the Fantasy Life Show. You can check out my written team preview of the Indianapolis Colts on FantasyLife.com. Dwain's projections, our consensus ranks, and again, all those great tools that Matthew Berry mentioned as a part of Fantasy Life Plus. So appreciate you guys tuning in again. For Dwain, for producer Matt, and for myself, thank you again for tuning into the Fantasy Life Show. And until next time, take care, everybody.